Today we're going to make one of my Happy Cuisinier originals, which is a ribeye with cowboy butter, sun-dried tomato gnocchi, and blue cheese crumbles. So I have some 3 small russets here, and I'm just going to poke holes in them to get them to cook faster. So with the gnocchi, we're going to have our oven on at 425, and I'm going to roast these until they're cooked all the way through. So for our steak, I'm going to put together the cowboy butter. Yeah. It has garlic, shallot, lemon, some spices, and definitely some heat from this ground red pepper. I just buy ground red pepper because it's cheaper than cayenne, but it gives you the same amount of heat. So I'm going to start getting chopping. I'm going to put all these ingredients in my bowl here until I'm ready to saute them off and add the butter in. I'm going to start my cowboy butter, and this is my garlic and shallot just going into the pot. Gonna wait for that to heat up a little bit more before I add in some oil. All right, in we go. So I'm going to cook this until it's brown around the edges. And you can already start smelling the garlic and the shallot in here. It's delicious. So we're ready to add in the rest of our ingredients. It's a little redundant, but I'm going to add in just a little bit of garlic and onion powders. I'm going to add in my spice here. And I'm going to toast this. I want my parsley to be a little bit cooked, so I'm going to add it in now as well. Now the trick to this is I don't want my butter to separate into two liquid and solids. So I'm going to keep this on low heat, and I'm going to really pay attention and stir this butter until it's melted all the way. And as soon as it's melted, I'm going to take it off the heat. And keep stirring. That's going to keep the butter from separating too much. And if it feels like it's melting too fast, just take it right off the heat for a second. And allow the butter that's still solid to kind of melt in to the already melted butter. And it looks like I might not even need to put this back on the heat at this point, because this is so hot, it's just going to melt the rest of my butter for me. So keep stirring till it's all melted in. And then my steak's already going to be pretty well seasoned, so I'm just going to add a tiny bit of salt to this. add in half of a lemon. And we're gonna give it a taste. A little bit more salt, but you can really taste the caramelized shallot and garlic in there. I'm not really getting any heat off of it, so I'm just gonna add a little bit more at the end here. I'm gonna put this in a bowl until we're ready to serve it. I've just taken my potatoes out of the oven. The skin has separated from the potato itself, and I feel it's very tender, so I know it's ready. So for this part, I'm going to use a cheese grater. I'm just going to cut my potatoes in half. All right, and I'm just going to use the cheese grater to grate all the way down to the skin. I have water coming to a boil over here because I'm going to boil my gnocchi and then I'm going to saute it. So I'm just letting my potatoes cool off a little bit more. I tried to grate a few of them, but they're still too hot. In the meantime, I'm going to cut up a third of the jar, or I'm going to cut up 3/4 of a jar of the sun-dried tomato. And I'm also going to set aside some oil for a flavor that I'm going to add into my gnocchi as well. Also, just to mention, you don't have to serve this with steak. You can serve it on its own and add a little side salad on the side, or you can serve it with fish or chicken. All right, so let's start grating our potatoes for gnocchi. Now I'm going to add in 2 eggs, 2 small size eggs. And I'm going to take a fork and whisk the egg into the potato. Making sure I'm breaking up any large clumps I might accidentally have gotten. When I was grating my potatoes. All right, next step is I'm going to add in my sun-dried tomatoes. And some salt. You can be a little generous with the salt because we're going to add in a good deal of flour. So I'll start with about 1.5 cups. And at this point, I'm going to take my hand and start mixing in the flour and making a dough. Try not to overwork it too much, but I do need to get this flour incorporated. Once it's come together, you can flip it out onto your cutting board or just onto your kitchen counter. Now I'm going to roll this into a log because it's going to help me when I'm starting to roll out my small pieces of gnocchi. I don't need too much flour because my dough isn't very sticky. So I'm just going to cut off slices and roll them out. Take your time on this because you want your logs to be pretty uniform. And then just cut them into small pieces. Now with gnocchi, we usually make little ridges on the pieces of pasta. So you do that by taking the back of a fork, and this kind of feels awkward at first until you get the hang of it. But you're just going to push it right down onto the tines. And roll it off. You want enough pressure that it's going to stick and allow you to roll. You can skip this step if you want to, but if you're going to be cooking these in any kind of sauce, this just helps the sauce to hang on to the gnocchi. Next, I'm going to get an oil pan. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to boil these until they float. And then once they come out, I'll pop this oil so they don't stick together. So these ribeyes are pretty thin. I'm going to just cook them entirely in the cast iron pan. I've seasoned them a little bit. And my pan is smoking, so it's hot and ready to go. And over here, I'm going to add in about half my gnocchi. It's really important not to crowd the pan, because if you crowd the pan, the gnocchi is not going to get nice and crisp. I also chose a saute pan so that I can flip my gnocchi as it's cooking. So I'm going to make sure it's not sticking. And I'm also going to add in a little bit of butter to brown. Here I'm just going to lift up my steak, get some oil under it, put it back down. And I have some foil ready to put my steak in once I get it out of the pan, so I can let it rest. If you have anything stuck to the bottom, try to get it off, because that will make the rest of the gnocchi stick to those spots. All right, that should do it. I'm going to leave this and let it toast. My steak's going to cook pretty fast here. I'm going to cook it to about medium rare, medium. I'm going to cook it mostly on this top side to get a really nice crust on it. And then when I flip it, I'll probably only leave it in the pan for about 30 seconds before putting it into my foil. All right, I can smell this. It's ready to flip. I'm going to go ahead and check it. It's about rare right now. My gnocchi is toasting up nicely. All right, out of the pan this goes. So I only have as much salt as I had when I first made my gnocchi. I'm going to add some more in, but not too much because I'll get some more salt from that cheese. You can cook off the rest whenever you want, but just for time's sake, I'm just going to do this one batch. Before I start plating, I just want to mention you can get your blue cheese from like the little tubs on the regular cheese aisle, or you can have a little bit of fun and pick one out from the specialty section. This is a Murray's blue cheese, which is what I use a lot for my dishes when I do use blue cheese. But if you're a little bit nervous about blue cheese, Gorgonzola is a really great alternative. I got this cheese at the reduced section of the store.